how one line saved Superman. I didn't know Superman needed saving, but I guess we're going to figure out what that one line was.
Cinema is home to countless legendary one-liners.
That's true.
Lines that make you laugh.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Lines that make you cry.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you.
Lines
No, that makes me
think.
laugh.
Like tears in rain.
But rarely does a single line manage to do all of those things while simultaneously reaffirming, modernizing, and justifying the continued existence of one of the most iconic characters in all of American fiction.
Okay.
But somehow, James Gunn has done exactly that, and in just 6 words, no less. Maybe that's the real punk rock. I know some of you might be scratching your heads, so I think some context is in order here.
Okay,
so
let's hear it.
Just
Let's
do
hear
a
it.
quick recap of the exchange before we get into why it matters so much.
Spoiler warning, guys. It's going to be spoilers. Also, don't forget to check out this guy's channel in the link in the description. And don't forget to check out my store. You can find tons of stuff like this to compete with me for a great Superman collection.
A few scenes prior, Clark and Lois get into a fight over Superman's decision to stop the Barabians from invading Jarhanport. She tells him she knew their relationship wouldn't work, and he leaves feeling dejected. Luthor reveals the truth of Jor-El's message, steals his foster dog, and thus, the entire world turns on Superman, leaving him at presumably his—
What a strange sentence. Luthor steals Superman's foster dog. It's not really something I'd ever thought I'd hear in a Superman movie.
lowest point since becoming a public superhero. So here is where the punk rock exchange begins.
Okay.
Clark returns home to find Lois already there. He apologizes for their fight, and she agrees, but asserts that arguments are inevitable given how different they are. Lois calls herself a punk rock kid, and Clark tries to say he's a punk rock kid too, but she shoots him
He doesn't try, he does say it. She just, yes, shoots him down.
down, mocking his favorite bands as radio pop garbage. But really, the music talk is
I heard that Mighty Crabjoy isn't even a real band. It's been referenced places, but it's not even a real band.
the shorthand for how differently they see the world. Lois questions everyone and everything, while Clark trusts instinctively and thinks everyone is beautiful.
That is so Superman. If you've read a few Superman comics, I've read a couple, okay? That is how he is. He trusts in people in the good. Even with Lex Luthor, he'll give him a chance all the time to show his humanity. Man, it's crazy cool.
To that, Clark responds simply, maybe that's the real punk rock. So why is this line so important?
I do want to
Because
know. I get it a little bit, but it didn't like have this massive impact on me. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of do want to know, like, what's so big about it? Because I could tell people in the movie, they were all moved by that, and I was like, oh, that's cute. Oh, it's a big deal. Oh, I didn't know it was a big deal. Okay.
Superman is a character that has existed in a perpetual state of misreading for my entire lifetime. He was always too powerful, too boring, too outdated, and
That's what
too
everybody
obvious.
thinks.
Even when I was a kid, saying your favorite superhero was Superman was like saying your favorite band was the Beatles. Which, by the way, is a totally valid musical opinion, and
Dude, he's hitting me hard. He's giving me the feels. That's how it was for me as a child. People be like, Superman's too powerful. You're just saying that because you don't like superheroes. They'd go on and on and on. But I have proof. All the way back to 1989.
I will die on that hill. But the point is, because of that negative connotation, every time someone tried to modernize Superman, like Zack Snyder or that guy who did the X-Men movies and a lot of other stuff I won't be mentioning here, they fell back on cloying Christ metaphors or shameless pastiche.
Okay, I don't have a problem with Messiah references because when Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster wrote Superman as two young Jewish boys, it was clear that they were right. You know, if you know much about the Jewish culture, they do have a Messiah. And that Messiah, I believe in Greek, is called the Christ. I think it's Greek. It's called the Christ. And so, though their Messiah, they don't believe is Jesus, they were writing about a Messiah figure. And the only Messiah figure that we actually really, everybody knows in mass is Jesus. So, you know, it kind of goes hand in hand. But I don't have a problem with that because that when they were writing, if you read the original comics, they say Superman, the savior of the oppressed, the Messiah was a gift to all nations to save people. And, you know, it's just, it doesn't bother me at all when people put the Messiah-like references in there.
As if those were the only viable ways to reintroduce this character to a world that was clearly about ready to leave him in the past. But in this punk rock exchange between—
Now, I will say, it sounds like he's going the route of this movie is somehow better than those. I found it to be slightly more watchable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. Like, I did rate it a little bit higher, not even a full point scale, not even A half point scale? No, not even a half point scale. Um, like 8.5 or 9, I didn't even rate a full half above those. I rated above them because it was a more enjoyable, watchable film to me. It got the character right, which is what made it above them. But they weren't the kind of movies that I just could watch all the time. This one's kind of, one that I like, more humorous films. I like more lighthearted films, though it did have intense scenes. But I don't think that this film was significantly better than the others. I do think it was better in many ways, but not significantly better.
Between Lois and Clark, Gunn proves the way to successfully modernize Superman is to remind us that his commitment to kindness, empathy, and sincerity isn't old-fashioned or hokey. Instead, it's actually the most radical and rebellious act a person can commit.
It's the thing that can save the world because nobody truly indulges in it. Superman did. Nobody else does, but he did, and that's what's awesome.
Especially in a world where those attributes are increasingly devalued. Despite that stale reputation I mentioned earlier, in actuality,
I hope that that's just the wrong photo that you put up there. That is not a stale representation. That is Superman. That is the Man of Steel. That is why we have what we have.
Superman has a deceptively rich and diverse publishing history. He's been around for almost 100 years now, and in that time he's been interpreted and reimagined in thousands of different ways. But whether he's a leftist power fantasy fighting capitalist goons at the end of the Great Depression, or a cosmic demigod...
It's so funny. But the original Superman comics from the Golden Age, people both call them fascist and socialist. Just quit worrying about that, okay? Just read it for what it is, a guy trying to save people.
God grappling with impossible choices, kindness has always been central to Superman's mission. Unless we're talking about injustice, I guess.
You killed these children.
No, that's a different Superman.
But instead of characterizing Superman's kindness as a factory default setting, Gunn decides to position it as his most powerful asset. For this Superman, compassion isn't just a byproduct of his duty as a Kryptonian or an American or a superhero.
Okay.
It's his calling. It's the thing that gets him out of bed in the morning. It's the bedrock of his value set, and it's the sole reason his power is something people in his world can aspire to, rather than something they just worship in silent reverence.
Well, that's true. I don't like the knocking so much on the Henry Cavill side, but yeah, I do think it was, very well done in that movie, the new movie, that's kind of what it is.
But this punk rock line doesn't just successfully modernize Superman as a character.
Okay.
It also proves why this story is so needed in this current cultural climate. It's no secret that superhero media has valued snark over sincerity since
I am Iron Man.
Especially when stacked up against the grimdark self-seriousness of the Snyderverse, the MCU became the gold standard for comic book filmmaking through self-referential quips and ironic detachment.
And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
But after nearly 2 decades of the biggest franchise in film history acting like it has to constantly denigrate itself to justify its own existence, fans have seemingly grown tired of all these sly winks and nods to the camera. In other words, maybe the biggest comic book film franchise in the world shouldn't...
Put in the comments if you agree with what he's saying about people being tired of that, like tongue-in-cheek, I guess, idea.
Believe comic books are too silly for cinema. Maybe they should celebrate the medium in all of its pulpy glory, instead of incessantly insisting it's not serious enough to be written sincerely. And it's not just superhero media, it's social media, it's music, it's comedy, and it's even the way we all interact with each other interpersonally. In a culture where caring is seen as corny, this type of radical sincerity from a character as iconic as Superman might just be the inflection point we needed to get back to storytelling that means what it says and isn't ashamed to stand behind it 10 toes down. But the real reason why this line hit me like a ton of bricks are its quietly genius political implications.
I'm curious as to where he's going to go here, because I didn't think the political implications were genius. I think it might be something that might have actually held back the film a little bit. I wouldn't have gone political at all with Superman if I was making it. I would just make it simple. Somebody trying to save people. Now you're trying to tell people that they can save people in a way that is either tells you that your opinions are right or wrong. I don't think that should be the point of a Superman movie or any superhero movie, not to tell people that their opinions are right or wrong. It should be something to get them away from the real world, to not have to think about that stuff. That's why I've always read Superman comics, because I can get away from it. And the ones that try to bring me back to it is when I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. And just about all of them have moments in it, and I can't stand it.
Despite its loud color pop aesthetics, James Gunn's Superman does have a political point of view, and it's not exactly subtle. All of the political actors in this film, from the backroom Pentagon wheelers and dealers to Lex Luthor and even to Lois Lane, Superman's decision to stop a well-funded militarized...
I did like that Lois Lane was reporting very well. I used to be a reporter, and it is very hard to step outside of your bias. And you guys see why I don't like politics. I used to be, a reporter. It's very hard to step out of that and just be like, I'm going to report on this for what it is and not try to take my lean and put that in there. That's a very difficult thing to, and the way she was handling it didn't seem like she was picking one side or the other. It just seemed like he did something. He gave his speech about, I stopped a war, and she's kind of like, or did you really kind of cause one? Because now everybody's up in an uproar. You know what I mean? Like she kind of really did a good job of doing an actual reporting. That was pretty cool.
Nation from invading its neighbor is framed as naive and disruptive. When Superman stopped the Baravian invasion, he wasn't thinking about the intricacies of geopolitics or the vested interests of defense contractors or even the fact that Baravia is technically an American ally. He just saw that people were about to die because someone was abusing their power. So he used his own to stop them. And this movie posits, correctly in my opinion, all the hand-wringing about complexities and contracts and allies and adversaries is just a calculated distraction. It's a smokescreen to obscure the obvious truth of Superman's simple yet entirely humanistic approach. Compassion always trumps conquest. And in the real world, where those in power consistently frame compassion as weakness or naivety, the type of messaging Gunn is trafficking in here feels like the most timely and affecting theme a movie about a guy in red tights could ever hope to impart on us. Punk rock often gets branded as an insular, snobby, and overly brash subculture.
I do wonder how, the reason the line I didn't get it as much, is because I've always seen punk rock as people inviting me when I was young to go to like mosh pits and stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't want to hurt people. I have no desire to hurt people or to be hurt for that matter. And so I never really understood the idea, like that's what I think of when I think of punk rock, is people are going to get hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like that's always been in my idea. So when he's like, that's the real punk rock, I've always been like, wait, but punk rock's kind of violent, isn't it? I don't know. Correct me in the comments. I'm not like, I was more of a grunge guy growing up, when I was a kid, back in the 90s and stuff. But I don't know, the punk rock thing, which Nirvana and stuff was one of my favorite, and they come from the punk rock area, and that always, I never got it. I never understood it.
Yes, I won't deny that gatekeeping has always been integral to punk's DNA. In fact, Lois Lane does a great job of keeping that particularly annoying aspect of the punk ethos alive and well in this film.
She does. She seems punk to me because she's jaded and she's, suspicious of everything, and she's ready to fight with whatever is necessary. You know what I mean? Like that seems pretty punk to me.
But at its best, and when it really matters, punk rock has always been about inclusivity, community, and righteousness. Things that this Superman and...
Inclusivity? You don't got the right threads, you're not included. That was pretty common back in the day, but maybe not for everybody. Maybe some people, it's like, no, yeah, you can look like a preppy and still be cool, in here. That's fine. That's never been the way it's been presented to me, but
bodies fully and unapologetically, which is why thematically linking these two ostensible polar opposites of American culture is quite possibly the most brilliant bit of screenwriting the superhero genre has ever produced. Yes, I really do think it's that good. If you take anything away from this movie, let it be this. No, Jim from The Office is not punk rock for being too cool for school. Michael Scott, on the other hand, totally is. Tony Stark is not punk rock for winking at the camera while blasting AC/DC. Clark Kent, on the other hand, totally is. Sonic Youth is not punk rock for stealing Nardwar's hat. Nardwar, on the other hand, totally is.
Okay, guys, based on what he's saying, tell me in the comments whether or not his description of punk rock is accurate. I need to know from people that maybe some of you guys that were actually, into punk rock back in the 80s and stuff, people who continue to be into it. Is this like the message behind punk rock? Is that actually what it is? Or is it something that we're somehow fantasizing about because of the line in this movie? You know what I'm saying? Like, I need to know, because I don't really know very well. I had my own opinions. They could be wrong. They could be prejudiced against punk rock. I don't know. If they are, I'll look into it, if you guys show me something important. But yeah, let me know if you are agreeing with this definition here.
If you know, you know. Elon Musk is not punk rock for training Grok to love Hitler. Greta Thunberg, on the other hand, totally is. Because in a...
Also, put in the comments if you think that Elon Musk trained Grok to love Hitler. See, put in the comments if you think that's true.
Culture devoid of authenticity, sincerity...
If people didn't get this far in the video, they're going to look at the comments and go, what is happening here? This has nothing to do with Superman.
is revolutionary. In a political climate devoid of compassion, empathy is radical. And in a world that seems hell-bent on indifference,
I wonder what he would say.
Against all odds, kindness is cool. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real punk rock. So as always, thanks so much to everyone who made it this far. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch y'all soon.
What do y'all think, guys? Do you think his video was doing justice to the whole punk rock line? To me, it still doesn't mean just a whole lot. I kind of get where he's trying to go with it, but maybe because I don't have a connection with it. Like I said, I was more of a grunge guy, and I never even liked the words to the music that I listened to. I just liked the sound of grunge. To me, music was never something that moved me to be or do somebody else than what I already was. It was just, I like the beat. I like the sound. I like the music of it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, guys. This video went all over the place. He did a good job preparing it. Don't forget to check out his video in the description. And don't forget to check out my store. And don't forget to check out my live streams that I have every week. Watch these videos, please.